Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to Warhammer 40k, Rogue Trader.
Thanks be to the Emperor, you are alive, your lordship. We are most gratified by your return, and the crew is full of zeal to carry out any orders you may have.
Great, glad to hear it. Can anyone tell me what just happened? What's going on with the sun? The Boxmaster falters.
Lord Captain, we saw a number of ships approach the sun. Black creations of inhuman make, amalgams of sharp angles and edges. They surrounded the star and then... My apologies, but I struggled to find words that could describe that terrible sight. The Xenos made the sun vanish into the void.
The interrogator closes his eyes and grimaces. Drukhari. You see Abelard's expression change as if a shadow has suddenly fallen over him. He rubs his temple wearily. As if we did not have enough troubles on our hands already. We're talking Dark Eldar. Enemies of humanity. Heinrich nods. A breed of the Aldari, the most cruel and devious of their kind. The design of their ships matches the description provided by the Boxmaster. Like all Xenos, the Drukhari are a blight on the face of the galaxy, but their technological superiority is indisputable. They abhor and fear warp sorcery, which is why they rely on creations of their twisted intellect. And many of those creations are capable of things that may seem akin to sorcery to the unenlightened eye. The theft of a sun is one example of what they are capable of. Wait, if they hate sorcery, why are they working with Aurora's cult? No, we can rule out that possibility. The Drukhari would never ally themselves with the archenemy's worshippers. If I had to name one thing that humanity and these Xenos have in common, it would be a shared loathing for warp corruption. Heinrich glances around. The situation calls for immediate action, Balin. We can continue this conversation later if you so wish. But right now, he gestures at the deck teeming with tumultuous activity. I believe you should assume command. Right. What's going on, people? Bring me up to speed.
The Navigator's sanctum is no longer empty, but the warp engine is still refusing to obey the engine seers. Without it, we cannot perform a warp jump.
Pascal's voice buzzes anxiously from his box.
It may be angry, or perhaps it is lamenting the injuries it has suffered. I will immediately initiate preparations for a prayer service. If the Omnissiah grants me comprehension, I will appease the machine spirit of this vessel.
I think we can skip that one. Pretty obvious why they didn't send a shuttle. Bigness, can we see what's happening on Rykad Minoris right now?
Our augur operators are reporting numerous uprisings and other manifestations of the archenemy's powers at various locations on the planet. Based on the fragments of communications picked up by our Vox operators, there is practically no resistance being offered by the governor's forces. Millions of people are converting to the blasphemous Final Dawn cult en masse and assembling in prayer circles.
Any chance we can stop what's happening? Retake the planet?
I fear that Rykad Minoris is lost. The situation is deteriorating by the minute. We must leave this system as soon as possible. However, there are still people on the planet who have not succumbed to heresy, and who are worthy of rescue. Besides the small number of our own shuttles, we also have the shuttles salvaged from the starport.
The dark eyes of the Sister of Battle flash. We must save as many as we can. This has all happened for a reason. Saint Argenta, whose name I carry with reverence and trepidation, is famed for saving the people of a dying world through the power of prayer. The God Emperor himself sent a star from the heavens that lifted the saint and her followers up to the sky, away from corruption and death. We must do as she did. Direct all our efforts to saving those people who, at this moment, look to the heavens in hope of salvation.
The lives of peasants are of little value. Our prime objective is to save the Holy Relic, the miraculous fusion reactor, and the electro-priests who guard and tend to it.
Abelard furrows his brows. Every moment we spend in proximity to a dying world, we are putting ourselves at risk. Your life, Lord Captain, is far more valuable than all of Rykad Minoris. The Von Valancius dynasty cannot be allowed to perish. And so, lamentable though it is, we must rule out the idea of any evacuation. Heinrich's eyes, like two deep, dark pools, are resolutely fixed on you. The world is doomed, and its inhabitants along with it. The disappearance of the star was the final nudge toward death, the finale of the cult of the Final Dawn's plans. I once witnessed a similar event, a world that had surrendered to the servants of the archenemy and permitted corruption to enter too deep. At this moment, millions of people are bowing down before those who promised them salvation, and they are willingly giving over their souls to chaos, a sacrifice great enough to bring forth a daemon world. Our only hope of stopping this process is to retreat to a safe distance from the planet and conduct targeted bombing of the Electro-Priest Monastery. If we blow up the reactor, a thermonuclear reaction will follow. The world's oxygen will evaporate, killing off the entire biosphere. In doing this, we will save millions of souls from a fate far worse than death. And we will save Rykad Minoris from becoming an outpost of the archenemy. Whatever fate you choose for this world, I urge you to make haste, Lord Captain. The planet is burning in raging flashes of crimson and purple. I can see it even from orbit. As do I see that the storm is already upon us. With every moment that we waste, it grows ever more difficult and perilous to steer the ship through the warp's turbulent currents. I'm with the lady on this. Enough talking. We need to get out of here while we still can. Something lurking in the depths of your consciousness bristles at the passing thought of saving people. The spike of horror you feel takes your breath away. It is as if you are planning to steal the prey of a mighty predator. The planet is already wrapped in a thread stretching out from the warp. It deserves to have a new master. If some of these people can still be saved, then why shouldn't we? For the simple reason that the transformation process will soon become irreversible, and our sole weapon against it useless. The energy released by the bombardment could stoke the warp energies. I have never witnessed the aftermath of bombing a daemon world before, but there is enough evidence of such attempts for me to say with confidence that you do not want to see it. Vigdis, how many people could we still theoretically save?
The nobles you rescued at the starport have given the coordinates of shelters where we can find surviving aristocrats and their families. As for Sergeant Malgar's troops, they will help to control the crowds of frightened commoners and prevent the shuttles from being overloaded. Thanks to you, we have salvaged many shuttles from the starport that we can now use.
Oh boy, okay. Now it's time to make the hard decisions. I mean, obviously we're going to try to rescue people. Long term, probably not the best move, since we are, of course, allowing Rykad Minoris to become a daemon world. But that's just who Valen is. Humanism over dogma. Though, that said, given the nature of the Cult of the Final Dawn, I'm not sure it's safe to pull out random civilians. At least not when we have other higher potential priorities. People we know are still loyal to the Imperium, or useful to our cause. And I mean, that aside, given that he is from a Forge world and clearly has some reverence for the Omnissiah, I think we've got to start with Dar and the miraculous fusion reactor. Contact Dar. Prep the Cenobium for evacuation. Any delay caused by loading and transporting to the ship will cost us precious time. Do not deceive yourself, Valen. If you indulge your vanity, you will doom billions to eternal torment at the hands of the archenemy. The order's been given, Van Kalox. Things only got as bad as they did because of your failure. Now stand down or I'll have you forcibly removed from my ship. You detect a flicker of something beneath Heinrich's sanguine mask. Whatever it may be, it does not seep into the interrogator's dispassionate voice. In that case, I consider it necessary to point out that the mark of the archenemy could infiltrate the ship with the priest escorting the reactor. Keep that in mind for the future.
Consider it done. It is likely our shuttles will have capacity to evacuate some people as well.
Nice. Oh, but that does still leave us with a tough choice. And I mean, I've got to say, well, I'm not crazy about the phrasing here. I do think it's a safer bet to pull the nobles' families out over random commoners. Plus, I do feel kind of bad about how things went down with Medina and Malgar. The governor was definitely foolhardy and headstrong, but he didn't really come across to me as being overtly corrupt. I hate leaving anyone, but I do feel like this is the most logical course. Contact the shelters. Tell them we're on our way.
Consider it done. This will bring us to the limit of our capabilities. We have no more shuttles to use in the evacuation effort.
The bridge is in upheaval. The Technomat's prayers mix together in a senseless cacophony, while servitors work hastily to remove a hardened crust of sacred unguents from the warp engine's components. In the middle of all this tumult stands Pascal with a data slate clutched in his hands, seemingly disconnected from the flurry of activity around him. Status report. What's going on?
The warp sextant is not responding to commands. The ship spirit is rejecting our prayers in anger. I am currently calculating a plea that might appease the noble spirit.
Honorable Tech Brothers, I have assigned Magos Hanuman as your new Engineer Prime. Please defer to his wisdom and instruction. Pascal, can you take it from here?
Thank you, your lordship. You are right.
Pascal's voice changes when he addresses the crew. He now speaks with authority and resolve.
Tech comrades, heed my instruction.
The mayhem immediately subsides, and the crew's actions fall into some indiscernible logic. The Omnissiah's servants start working in sync, and the binaric clamor becomes a symphony of reports, which the Magos coordinates like a skillful conductor. Nicely done, Pascal.
The Omnissiah guides me.
The prayers of the tech priests surrounding the cogitator almost drown out the sounds of the bustling bridge behind you. Pascal, poring intently over the data slate in his hands, extends a mechadendrite toward you.
Please, take your place at the cogitator, Lord Captain.
Right. What are we doing?
I studied the data and discovered a machine node that was damaged as a result of the heretic sabotage. The functioning of the warp sextant was tampered with, and the ship's spirit, aggrieved by this violation of the right of operation, is now rejecting its calculations. I sought a way to rectify this error, and have concluded that your participation is necessary to do so. The cogitator systems of this Temple of the Omnissiah are subordinate to the shell whose repository serves the machine we see before us. A machine created for your predecessor, and one that uses the biological signatures of dynastic blood in its computations. The spirits should recognize the ship's master and submit to his will. Should.
Pascal speaks the final word with a slight tremor in his synthesized voice. Gotta say, Pask, you're not exactly filling me with confidence here.
Lord Captain,
comes the crackle from Pascal's vox, part beleaguered sigh, part interference.
I am still poorly acquainted with this void ship. The acolytes here have adopted their own customs for conversing with the machine spirits. They do not know me, and they express themselves in a little-known dialect of technolingua. I will trust in the Omnissiah that my analysis of the data was correct. It means we have a chance of appeasing the ship's spirit.
Okay, let's do it. The huge machine in front of you is lit with dozens of vid screens and hundreds of lumens. The blinking lights and endless rush of symbols and digits on the green background make your eyes water, and a vague sense of alarm simmers in the depths of your mind. The typical reaction of a layperson when confronted with the magnitude of the Omnissiah's creation. Among the numerous controls, you see the mouth of a cyber gargoyle, the same as at the gate of the Warren Chamber. Pascal's voice becomes imbued with imperious force.
Servants of the machine god, heed my command. Acolytes, prepare the incense instrumentation for the liturgy of machine spirit propitiation. Senior technomats, recite the prayer to generate a current data report. Operations will be marked with the campanological protocol, Omnissiah Rejoice.
Those are certainly words.
I must inform you that for the purposes of safety, complete reassembly of the warp sextant and updating of its datasmith blessings are required. If this is not done, then at launch, the volume of aggregate calculation errors could result in the destruction of the data crypts. But as we do not have 100 hours at our disposal, we must omit this procedure.
Pascal looks down at the data slate in his hands.
A minor deviation from the rite of operation, for the sake of appeasing the spirit.
Deviating from the rites? You sure about this, Pask?
Dogma bids that the appropriate rituals of cleansing and reassembly be carried out on the warp sextant. It is a long and labor-intensive process.
Pascal hesitates before continuing.
Our best chance is to bypass the sacred prohibition on directly interfacing with the conduits of the motive force. A faster and less orthodox route.
So if I'm understanding what you're saying, you're basically telling me I need to convince the ship to start a part that isn't working properly.
Your interpretation is verging on tech heresy. However, given your rank, Lord Captain, I will nevertheless respond. For a layperson, you have described your position with relative accuracy. I place my hopes in his revelations, and humbly ask for his guidance.
Right, just tell me what I need to do.
Place your hand inside the throat of the Cogitator Guardian, the cyber gargoyle which has been assigned to guard the forbidden data crypts. The dynastic blood extracted from your veins will serve as a key to the data core, where the machine spirit dwells. To it, we will offer our prayers, so that we may bypass the protective protocol for defective connections, and launch the warp sextant.
Pascal's voice grows quieter.
The laws of the Omnissiah know no exceptions, and so in this ritual I will remain at your side to placate the wrathful machine spirit, in whose abode you will be intruding. Follow my liturgies, Lord Captain, and may we receive his blessing.
Okay, here goes nothing. The metal jaw clamps down on your hand, breaking your delicate corporeal sheath and releasing warm red liquid into its gullet. At the same moment, the image on the vid screen before you changes. Connecting, connecting, connecting. Successful register? Ask, what am I looking at here? At the sound of your voice, the cogitator's servant, whose bronze-bound skeleton is built into the cogitator housing, shudders. With a screech, its skull rotates toward you, and then stops in that position.
Benevolent code, a voice receptor.
Pascal emits a sequence of binaric signals, and then is silent for several seconds.
I hypothesize that the defect is located in the analyzer block. I register a reaction to the signal, but no processed response. A temporary override is permissible.
The Magos intently studies the vid screen.
The shell was created on a forge world unknown to me, initiating standard invocation of the machine spirit.
Pascal leans over the adjacent instrument panel and sets his hands on the controls. At the same time, a quiet stream of machine code begins pouring forth from his Vox. What should I do?
Lord Captain, I now ask you to address the machine spirit. Speak the following command. By my authority, I revoke the inviolability protocol of the warp engine. The voice receptor will receive the vocal entry. Without your sanction, the machine spirit will not accept the data from the warp sextant.
Man, I wish I knew what any of this meant. Stab true. Act.
Lord Captain.
Pascal stops and then continues more calmly.
Please, you will anger the machine spirit before we have removed the restriction.
Right, sorry. By my authority, I revoke the inviolability protocol of the warp engine. One of the cogitator's vid screens turns red. Pascal sees this and raises his hand, signaling to the rest of the tech priests, then withdraws a connector from his sleeve and connects it to the machine.
Servants of the Omnissiah, make now the offering of cleansed data crypts to the machine spirit, so that it may be filled with their true and calibrated data. May the Omnissiah have mercy on our souls.
In meek solemnity, the acolytes offer up the cleansed data crypts to the warp engine, one after another, repeating prayers of exaltation. After anointing the contacts with sacred unguents, Pascal inserts them in the cogitator slots. Your head begins to spin from the holy sensor's foul-smelling clouds of smoke, and from the loss of blood that the cyber gargoyle continues to drink from you. And the world swims before your eyes.
Let this mechanism awaken in renewed purity.
Pascal enters a sequence of commands and raises his head, watching the vid screens. Suddenly, he stops dead.
No.
His fingers fly over the command runes, entering command after command. His mechadendrites, clicking their pincers, pull at one lever after another. The vid screens fill with strings of symbols, completely incomprehensible to you, but clearly conveying something to the Magos. Pascal, what's happening? After a few seconds, one of the data crypts mounted on the cogitator begins to emit sparks. A moment later, another data crypt does the same. The next bursts into flames and gives off foul-smelling smoke. Around you, the Omnissiah servants break off from their prayers, and someone bursts into frantic pleading. Pascal mournfully grates out.
The mass of errors in the warp sextant's calculations is destroying the data repositories. The offering did not appease the ship's spirit. The warp engine cannot be filled with the motive force. We are trapped.
A moment later, the Magos continues uncertainly.
Perhaps an alternative Ryzen protocol, or an emergency launch of the auxiliary coils.
The tech priest bends over the cogitator, but something in his pose and movements reveals his desperation. While the other vid screens are filled with more and more strings of symbols, the monitor in front of you blinks, and its static image changes. Pascal is too engrossed in his ritual to notice. Input, pack comp, stab true, stab false, perturb, disturb, query. Huh. Pascal, can you make any sense of this? Pascal turns toward you, his flickering visor betraying his anxious state.
Lord Captain,
He stops short when he sees the vid screen.
Distorted transmissions from the data core. Most likely the residual cognitive functions of the built-in servitors. Omnissiah, shield us from machine ghosts.
He returns to manipulating the Cogitator's command runes. Wait a minute. Can you hear me? The Cogitator's servant creaks quietly in its joints, a sound that is drowned out by the binaric hymns and the tapping of command runes. Input prompt. Ping requires response. Injury, rescue, or query. Right, yes, I think Pascal just called it. We had that incident earlier where all those servitors had their souls wake back up, but they were confused and they didn't know what they were supposed to be doing. Listen, whoever or whatever you are, soul or machine spirit, in the name of the Omnissiah, the Emperor, reveal unto us your power. Guard us against our doom. Pascal echoes your sentiments with the triumphant sounds of a binaric hymn. Pascal's next vocalization goes unsynthesized as he sees the vid screens begin to stabilize one after another. The strings frenetically galloping across the green background are replaced with stable images or regularly updating status reports. Only one monitor remains inexplicably red. The tech priest's vox crackles in shock, but his report is as clipped and clinical as ever.
Registering. Warp sextant activated. Registering. Data stream stabilizing. Registering. 0 data errors found. Reporting. The warp engine is ready for translation.
After a pause, Pascal adds,
I am also reporting evidence indicating a Category 3 miracle fulfilling the criterion, thou shalt witness the mechanism that toils in glorification of its function and in defiance of deactivation.
Lord Captain, Ravor here. The crew are just finishing carrying out the orders given earlier, and I've just received confirmation from the engineering halls. I don't know what you did, but the warp engine's up and raring to go. We're ready to begin the translation to the warp, your lordship. Pascal, any idea what just happened? Pascal pauses.
I hypothesize that the ship's spirit heard our prayers and intervened. It summoned the power of the Omnissiah to do something beyond my comprehension.
Well, I mean, if the Omnissiah intervened directly, I think it's all thanks to you, Pascal. Just like with that exploding excavator. Miracles seem drawn to you.
I hope he will grant me a revelation that will allow me to comprehend the nature of this miracle.
Pascal's vox buzzes with wonder and an undercurrent of exultation. Still, I've got to say, the messages that were turning up on that screen seemed peculiar.
A non-standard output of information lost in the data core. The servitors used as data conduits are not always fully lobotomized. Fragments of their thoughts can appear, even in pure code.
Pascal falls silent, immersed in thought. Which means he's not convinced either. Ravor, we're all set down here. Warp me. Waiting for you to ascend to the captain's throne, Lord Captain. May the Emperor protect us.
Von Valancia's flagship made its way out of the doomed star system. As the void shift plunged deeper into the Corona's expanse, the rogue trader's subjects bid a formal farewell to the late head of the dynasty, Theodora von Valancius. Having paid their last respects, the crew gathered their strength and braced themselves for whatever was to come next.
Lord Captain, allow me to report. Our journey through the warp is coming to an end. Lady Navigator Orselio informs me that we have reached the point where we can translate to real space in the Furibundus system. The Lady Navigator and her pilots are awaiting your permission to begin the process. The Furibundus system is home to Footfall, the only Imperium outpost with a functioning wharf in the Coronis expanse. The tech priests are begging you to have mercy on the machines worn down by the warp, and to allow the servants of the Omnissiah to inspect and heal the void ship's wounds in the dock. The prayers and rituals will take some time, which our astropathic choir will use to establish a connection with the prime worlds of your protectorate, Dargonis, Janus, and Kiava Gamma. Master Zachary Wise has recovered an invitation previously adrift in the Immaterium. The Liege of Footfall has humbly requested an audience with the rogue trader of the Von Valancius dynasty. According to Master Zachary, the message was tinted with shadings of pleading. I quote, "Apparently, the Liege is anxious to meet as soon as possible."
Footfall. The place where filth and sanctity go hand in hand. Reverend Hieronymus Delarosa will most likely expect a visit from me. I imagine he will be interested in talking to you as well, Valen. I will be leaving your void ship when we arrive on Footfall, Valen. Once that is done, consider the Lord Inquisitor's task complete. Your Lordship, young Yvain Winterscale has asked me to convey his gratitude for your hospitality, and for saving him from certain death. Not wishing to outstay his welcome, he plans to disembark at Footfall. Lord Yvain swears he will not forget his debt to you.
I hereby inform the rogue trader that during a comprehensive system inspection rite, this unit discovered data clusters within the captain's cogitator that are concealed from prying eyes by means of a personal cipher and a sacrament of algorithmic authorization.
Oh ho, well that's intriguing.
Unit Valen von Valancius has been added to the access list and assigned the identifier Keeper 2. The unit can access the data from the captain's cogitator, provided that he possesses the decryption key.
You detect a hint of something resembling curiosity in Pascal's mechanical voice. So, leaving us already, Van Kalox? What a shame. The arrangement between the Lord Inquisitor and your predecessor was that I be transported to Footfall and no farther. I dare not take advantage of your generosity and patience, any more than I already have, Valen. Well, if you're sure. Far be it for me to stop you. Safe travels, Interrogator. Heinrich replies with a respectful nod. Argenta, who's this, Reverend Hieronymus you mentioned? He is the head of the Drusian mission on Footfall, and one of the most prominent clergymen in the sector. Paying him a visit is a good thing for any loyal servant of the Emperor to do. I assisted his mission before I joined Lady Theodora on her voyage. I need his blessing to accompany the new rogue trader of the Von Valancius dynasty. If you wish to have me aboard your void ship, I request that we meet with Reverend Hieronymus. Yeah, I think we can manage that. Bigness, what else can you tell me about this system?
For Abundus is valuable due to its close proximity to the Maw, the gateway to the Imperium. The system is mostly known for Footfall, the main base for merchants, privateers, and rogue traders traversing the Coronis Expanse. Additionally, the star itself is orbited by an Adeptus Mechanicus station, which is off-limits to outsiders.
Altar Templum Calixis X-17. I had the honor of tending to this shrine for a few thousand cycles. I suggest you abstain from visiting it, as most tech comrades at the station are engaged in meditative calculations that should not be interrupted.
That's definitely going to be important later. What about Footfall? What do we know?
It is the largest port and the trading capital of the Coronis Expanse. It has a dockyard that will allow us to inspect and repair the Void Ship, and it boasts its own astropathic choir, the Coronis Expanse Communications Nexus.
Not to mention pirate hideouts, smuggler caches, and forts belonging to a dozen gangs, groups, and factions. In the Coronis Expanse, the Imperium relies on this as its outpost. The fringes of humanity's domain rarely resemble its central worlds. But so long as Footfall serves the God Emperor, insofar as it can, it will be considered a citadel of the Imperium. Although I have heard that the tithes it sends are underwhelming, to say the least.
Due to Footfall's remoteness, it has developed its own rules and customs. Many of the goods that can be procured there would be considered heresy in the heart of the Imperium, enough to warrant summary execution. Moreover, Footfall is the domain of the rogue traders, who transcend certain Imperial laws by virtue of the warrant they bear.
Good to know. But this is just a pit stop. Where do we go from here?
As soon as we solve the issues plaguing the ship and establish contact with the key worlds of your protectorate, the time will come for your Magnae Exsellsior, the official ceremony of donning the mantle of the rogue trader. It is mostly a formality at this point. You already possess all the privileges granted by the warrant, and yet it is a major milestone in your personal history. The moment your name graces the list of heads of the von Valancius dynasty. We are all looking forward to that day, Lord Captain.
As am I. Abby, what do we know about whoever's in charge of Footfall Station? Blaine Tokara is a peculiar young man. Consider your upcoming conversation a baptism of fire in Footfall's political arena. Such things are not spoken out loud, but Liege Tokara is the appointee of the Kazbalika mission, the largest robber baron crime syndicate in the Calixis sector. They specialize in the cold trade, the buying and selling of all kinds of Xenos rubbish. Footfall was previously run by a liege who did business with several criminal factions at once, but he suffered an accident. The reins of power were picked up by Blaine Tokara, whose appointment benefits not only the Kazbalika, but also their most powerful ally in the Coronis Expanse, rogue trader Koligos Winterscale. Blaine is a slippery yet very cautious fellow. He does not usually beat around the bush and does not play mind games. Perhaps more importantly, he is no fool. Fools do not rise this high in the Kazbalikan hierarchy. Keep all this in mind. You are a rogue trader. You stand above him in status and wield considerable power. Having said that, history has seen cases where the Kazbalikan barons crossed swords with rogue traders and emerged victorious. Do not forget that, and remain vigilant. Noted. But I think we'll get along.
The Kazbalika. Vile tech thieves.
Pascal's Vox barks out the last word like a profanity. Well, this is awkward. Any idea what this guy wants from me? Not you personally. He wishes to meet with the rogue trader of the von Valancius dynasty. Tokara does not know about Lady Theodora's death. and is simply seeking an audience with the powers that be. My gut is telling me that something must be very wrong on Footfall if our astropath managed to read such strong emotion in such an anodyne message.
We have no information, Lord Captain. The broadcast from the Footfall Astropathic Choir was the only missive Master Zachary has received thus far.
So out of one fire and into another. Story of my life. Alright, someone let Cassie know we're ready to get real. Vigdis begins issuing instructions. The massive ship appears to change with her every word. The bridge is set in motion as hundreds of people start to prepare for the shift to real space, and measured chanting fills the corridors to safeguard the vessel and its crew. Vigdis turns to you again.
One more thing, Lord Captain. No one at the station knows about Lady Theodora's demise and you inheriting the title. Liege Tokara will be informed. It is required so we can use the dock. And besides, he is expecting a personal audience with the rogue trader. He will not meet with an unknown person of unclear standing. However, there is still the matter of announcing your arrival. You can either arrive on the station with the proper pomp and ceremony, or choose to visit it incognito.
Well, I am partial to operating from the shadows, but my circumstances have changed a bit as of late. What should I know?
According to Footfall's unwritten laws, rogue traders enjoy special privileges that exceed even the power of the Liege. However, they may choose not to exercise those privileges in certain situations. Arriving incognito will give you more room for maneuver, while an official visit will allow you to directly intervene in local affairs.
I shall explain if you do not mind. As per this unwritten rule, every rogue trader arriving at the station has the right to veto any of the Liege's decisions. But there is a catch. The Coronis Expanse is home to several influential rogue trader dynasties, and Footfall is where their interests intersect. Of course, that does not prevent certain persons, namely Caligos Winterscale, from suddenly pulling the strings in Footfall. If you, as a new rogue trader, start your career with an official landing and a parade in your honor, the other dynasties may see this gesture as the newcomer challenging their spheres of influence. I do not see that as a bad thing, necessarily. Old Man Winterscale may take slight offense. Corda will be put on her guard. But you have just risen to prominence, and most people in the Coronis Expanse have not even heard about Lady Theodora's departure yet. It must be made clear that the banner of Von Valancius soars as high as ever. If I may, I would recommend arriving incognito. You will have plenty of opportunities to savor the sweetness and burden of power. But right now is the last time you can take refuge in obscurity. This way, your arrival will not draw much attention, and the people will treat you as a person, and not the almighty sovereign anointed by the Emperor. It could turn some situations to your advantage. Which is good advice, despite the source. And I mean logically, as a crime lord. I would be more prone to going incognito. But at the same time, that's what we did back in Alpha. So I do feel compelled to try something different, to see what's changed. That aside, being able to actually exert authority over certain situations could also very much work to our advantage. I've made my choice. Contact Footfall Station. Let them know the new rogue trader is here.
It will be done, Lord Captain.
Vigdis bows again.
With your gracious permission, I will return to my duties.
Whew, and with that, Act 1 is finally well and truly done. Hey Kaiser, what's up, buddy? And my throat is well and truly shot. That said, I think this is a good place to call it. We'll hit the pause button for now. I'll take stock of our advanced archetypes, figure out what we're doing there. I'll have to check the latest patch notes to see what does and doesn't work. And we will pick up here next time as we get that set and follow the footfalls of our forebears as we embark upon Act 2 of our epic journey. See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Revenant, Alois, CrowkingLoR, Dragon Matrix 7, Drakiith, Theory V23, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Kazorm, Mark Giemza, Nathan Welch Jr., OverlordPherom, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Tomasz Piątkowski, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.